So I'm looking just conscious of time and going through any Q&A and closing remarks. We had a couple of questions submitted before. Um, one which I'd probably put to Tim, sorry, to to Max to start with, actually. Um, and it's more around emerging technologies and what do you think's on the way that's likely to impact OT and IT systems?
Oh, big question. I think, to be honest, most business, if I'm looking at it from a business perspective, automation driving the bottom line, driving the profit margins, we'll start seeing a lot of that. Automation, I think, fundamentally is going to change the way, and that extends out to AI, machine learning, that sort of process. So I think that's probably where we'll see the biggest change. But it's a big question to answer.
Sure, understood. We've also got a question from Mohammed in the chat. Thanks, Mohammed. Um, which will fire at Tim. Is there any way we can make a unified governance risk framework where we can map different frameworks?
Um, I think there might be some. So I think things like 27001 against 62443. I'm sure I've seen sort of examples of mappings in that area. Yeah, I mean, I suppose the question is around practicality of use as well, and whether you would want to do that. Is that sort of I suppose that's to sort of expand maybe into the IT and the OT worlds. Perhaps you're thinking with that one. But yeah, I think there might be some, but otherwise, I've certainly done it in the past myself, where I've actually just sat down and and pulled a load of frameworks together and mapped them out. So it can be done. Um, I suppose from my only other thought is as well from a regulatory point of view, they normally do pick one particular framework. So I suppose my cautionary side would just say, what would be the use case, I suppose, and having a clear understanding of that first before you do it. But yeah, other than that, yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, Tim, I can offer a use case. It's where where you cannot comply with what the regulator is asking for directly within the framework that they're proposing. So you can offer an alternative solution, which, most regulators are pretty good when you say, okay, we don't do that, but we do this, which
Yeah.
is the equivalent. So mitigation and the risk using an alternative method. And I can safely say that I do have what's known as a crosswalk, which matches across 27,000, COBIT, 62443, NIST 800, OG86, and then identifies the subclauses in each one where it's relevant, because the terminology won't always be the same, but the intent of that mitigation is to avoid the same consequence. So
I think that's,
yeah,
I suppose my approach on that one would be a regulatory discussion. So rather than looking for another control set, I would probably open up a dialogue with the regulator and say, this is either not technically possible, or if I was to do it, I feel it potentially increases the risk. So one example might be, you might want to regulators defining that you have to monitor all your systems, but in order to do that, you potentially would have to take an offline system and connect it up. Now, if that's a safety system or something, is that preferable? Possibly not. So, that's I would go back to risk assessments and say, well, actually, there's more risk more risks if I do this approach as to if I kept it as it was, and I would open up a dialogue around that. That would be my approach.
Thanks, chaps. We've got more questions in the Q&A. Next one is an anonymous one, actually. So what's the best way to get started for someone looking to transition into a security career?
I would immediately answer, go and join SANS.
Well, this is specifically from a development software engineering background.
Agreed. I totally agree, Elliot. And because of that, because I was a software engineer, developing software for automation control systems. And when Stuxnet came about, I went, oh, okay, so somebody somewhere must know some degree of principles of action here that need to be followed. And SANS were one of the first ones into the market with it. And the thing is, it doesn't cost anything to join. Now there's podcasts in there, there's white papers, there's all kinds of useful resources. In fact, probably too many. But that's a good starting point because there are so many doors into this industry that you could end up just going round and round in a loop. So best, from my experience anyway, just go to SANS and join SANS. You just want your email address. That's it.
Good stuff.
So just to add on that one, then I think LinkedIn, to be honest, following people that actually are in the industry, I've learned and spoke to and met loads of people just off mutual connections and having conferences like this and all these sort of things. So I'd definitely say if you particularly want to specialize in ICS or OT, is find the people that are in the industry, follow them. They're often either they're at conferences or they're talking about a particular issue or blog posts or whatever it may be. You can find as well what's current, what they're dealing with on a day-to-day. So I always think that's quite a good way to skip round a lot of the research you need to do yourself and go straight to the core of what businesses are doing day to day.
Thanks, Max. Okay, and a question from Amar as well, and this is: what are the specific strategies for employing AI to secure OT and ICS against sophisticated cyber threats? And how do these strategies differ from traditional IT security approaches? Do we have strategies for employing AI to secure OT and ICS at the moment, or is it, again, are we quite early in the adoption?
I would always be naturally cautious of putting AI with OT naturally, or at the stage we are in the development of AI. I mean, in a year, 2, 3, 4 years, I think AI is going to look very different. So it'll be quite interesting to see what that happens.
Yeah, I would add to that. For Amar, go take a look at EUBA. So Entity User Behavioral Analysis. That is AI to all intents and purposes, and there are solutions out there that give you that ability. So fundamentally what you're saying is, I watch the behavior of this network on a regular basis. I understand the patterns, which node talks to which node, when they do it. If you put that into play for even just a short period, say a month, and just leave it running, what you come away with is a realization that, oh, I can see the shift changes going on here. I can see the guys coming on and starting their process from this engineering workstation, talking to this node or this PLC, etc. So patterns very, very quickly emerge. So outliers, e.g. something occurring that you've never seen before, it could be a false flag, but it could well be something else. So you need to know when the patterns change in your network. So EUBA is AI for me. It watches everything. It stores the patterns. It's a bit like watching the movement of a valve and checking the pressure profile and seeing that normally this valve takes X amount of time to move, and the pressure profile change looks like this, and I'm going to store that away. So every time you move that valve, I'm going to compare it to the last move. And when I see deviations in that movement, I'm going to flag that to the operator because that valve's obviously having a problem that it didn't have 12 months ago. When maintenance windows come around, we're going to open that one up and have a look at it so that we don't have to go and maintain everything. So EUBA is like what we call PM, preventative maintenance. And that, again, is another form of AI.
Great, thanks. Okay, hopefully that answers the question, Amar. And then we've got one from Annabelle as well, which I think is the last question at the moment on the Q&A. How can a company with separate IT and OT leadership teams work together to implement security during integration? And specifically, how can we encourage collaboration when OT security is usually handled by control engineers, while IT security has a dedicated leader, like a CISO? So I guess this is, looking in a situation where you've got really separate leadership teams across the two, what steps would you take to try and bridge that gap?
that's a real world problem. And I suspect that Annabelle's suffering from it as we speak. And that fundamentally is down to the way that whoever the CISO is, and I'm not going to say not done his job properly, but what I am going to say is that you have to realize that as you're implementing these frameworks and setting out your policy, that a policy has to take into account that it's a joint effort. It all comes down now to what I call team building, where you take the people that you rely on to implement your cybersecurity infrastructures and put them together, take them team building, mix them up. It's a man management skill, which a CISO should have. So I've seen it before. It looks like a real world problem.
Do you find yourself in the middle, Max? Because I guess you cover both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I always look at these things. I think if it's not a known problem or it's not getting the attention you deserve in terms of OT, then look at the risk. You know, without production, what does that cost you in pounds and pence? That will soon wake up the board to understand of the criticality. Luckily, like I say, with OT, I'm on site now. I make a habit of coming to site, going around with engineers, we go out for dinner later. You know, these sort of things of getting to know the people and understanding their roles. But it does normally take someone to thread all the different members together and hold everyone together and drive it forward. Without that, I think everyone sort of can work in silos and they may not be concentrated quite on OT, maybe other parts of their role.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, I think that's after the Q&A then, by the looks of it, which means we'll probably draw to a close now. So thanks everyone that's joined on the attendees, and particular thanks to the panelists and Michael for co-hosting with me. As I've said before at the beginning, we aim to do this once a month, and I'll be back in touch with everyone that's joined and everybody in the meetup groups and registered interest in LinkedIn. All of the details for the next event. We'll have a new topic, and obviously it's something that I hope that you'll want to join again. But the main thing I want to get across with this is, you know, this is an area where we'd like to share experiences and collaborate and create something that works for the community. So any feedback and things that you'd like to see discussed, you know, just let me know. Get in touch and let me know what you'd like to see discussed on future events. Because we want to provide value to everybody that's interested in the series. So really appreciate everyone joining. Thanks everyone that's spoken today on the panel, and I wish you all a good evening.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Cheers. Goodbye.
Bye.